Hello, Garland Nixon here, and it's figured I'd come on. I'm reading a lot of things online that make it appear as though it's imminent that the U.S. is going to get involved in the conflict in the Middle East. So, hey, let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and let's talk about what's going on in the Middle East. I think my camera might be crooked, or maybe it's maybe the universe is crooked. The whole world is crooked, and I'm the only one that's straight. How about that? Let me get this out of the way because it's kind of confusing me here and get myself together. I've been on Telegram, I've been on everything trying to figure out what's happening. And so let me fill you in on what I have picked up today. Hey there, Chicken Patty. All right. So over the course of the day, watching and reading a couple of things of interest, a couple of tidbits I'll throw at you that I picked up. One of them is my understanding, I've heard it in more than one place, and that is that when the initial attack on the sneak attack, as it were, on Iran happened, that we were told that there was a drone base and they had drones inside that, the Mossad, and of course the CIA, most likely MI6, had drones inside of, they built some drone base inside of Iran and had all of this kind of stuff. And that's how they were attacking them. And we have now heard other things that a lot of that wasn't drones, that they had like the MEK, the Mujahideen al-Khalq, which is a cult. It's like a ISIS kind of cult that the U.S. and the West supports. Funds, trains, arms, all that stuff. So they did a bunch of car bombs. That they did a bunch of stuff with car bombs. They had some handheld shoulder fired rockets, stuff like that. Apparently a lot of those bastards have been caught and met an untimely demise at the business end of a rope, as I understand it. A lot of them have been caught. I would imagine, I'm not in favor of these kinds of things, but I would imagine they got tortured and hung. From what I hear, that was pretty much the succession of things. That's the direction things went when they were caught. Now, I will say this, I'm not in favor of torturing and hanging people, but here's what I understand. When you betray a country, you do things inside of a country that is going to cause great damage to the sovereign government, and they catch you. Hello, I think we know how that works out. Anyway, so that's something of interest. The other thing that I heard was that really I got this from one source, but a very strong source. And that was that when the Iranians went down, it was like a massive cyber attack got them. That was a big part of it, right? And that on the first day, their air defense went down, and that allowed Iran to come in and launch some strikes, some missile strikes or what have you, right? And that the Russians helped the Iranians, that the Russians worked with the Iranians, and they were instrumental in getting the Iranians' air defense system back up. Also, that a lot what we're hearing. So what the Israelis keep saying is, yes, we're operating with impunity in the we're flying wherever we want to. Well, apparently the number I'm getting is 4 F-35s at this point may have been shot down. That's what's being claimed. We're still trying to figure that out, but there's the maximum number, I think, is 4. Clearly some F-35s have been shot down. Clearly some of them have been shot down. At least one pilot nabbed. But as many as 4. I've also heard that Lockheed Martin, who make the F-35, they're seeing their stock take a little bit of a tumble. Yeah, it is what it is. That's irrelevant. Apparently, Iran made this big to-do, and they said we're going to launch hundreds of million missiles. We're going to knock the crap out of we're going to knock the daylights out of the Israelis. Oh, they're going to get it. Well, apparently, so far, there's been launches, but not the numbers. Apparently they threatened a lot of missiles, but so far what I'm reading is And apparently, at one point, I know they said they launched one missile and it was undetectable by the Israelis, and that single missile came in and hit. That one of the things that I had heard that the Iranians were going to do was launch some weapons that they hadn't used before. And my perspective of that was this: it would make sense, knowing that Trump is apparently, it says, uh, a couple of things I'm hearing. There's things they're out everywhere saying that Trump is ready to go to war. That Trump has gone to has called his National Security Council to the White House, and they're ready to attack. That Trump is saying Iran shouldn't have, they can't have a missile, saying things, saying, yes, Tehran better evacuate everybody, just making boisterous statements. Now, with Trump, you never know what the heck that means. But they imply that the U.S. is going to get involved. The U.S. has sent a lot of weaponry and continues to send a lot of weaponry to the region. And my belief, at least over the last few days, was that the whole thing was a scam, that the whole thing from beginning to end, as far as negotiation, was all a lie. They were just killing some time until they got everything ready to attack. That it was all perfidy, as we say, the violation of international law, wherein you pretend that you're going to negotiate, you put up a white flag. A perfidy would be like somebody puts up a white flag, I'm going to surrender, and when a guy comes to take you prisoner, you shoot him. That's illegal under international law. Or to say, I'm going to bring you in and I'm going to we're going to negotiate, and when the person comes in to negotiate, you use that to take advantage of them, to gain a military advantage. That's called perfidy. That's a violation of international law, and Donald Trump and his people are clearly in violation of the rules against perfidy. But at any rate, so now the Trump has said, apparently he left the G7 and he said, I'm leaving this and going back to DC because of the things going on in the Middle East. Then there was a report that he said, oh, we want the National Security Council and he's going to meet with them. But some Israeli government, now see, here's the thing, there's a lot of BS going on. Israeli Channel 14 apparently it's a lot of places online, that they were saying Trump is going to sign an executive order declaring war on Iran. Well, first of all, Trump can't declare war, only Congress can declare war, but that's irrelevant now because Congress has thoroughly and completely abdicated all of their responsibilities regarding national security, war and peace and all that. The president can just attack anybody and everybody. In fact, it's rather than the Congress being the restrainer or being the oversight, what Congress says is, why haven't you attacked yet? That's what they do, right? So anyway, there's several things going on there. It's out everywhere. Okay, Trump's about to attack Iran. Now, here's what's interesting. Here's something, because as I got a couple of different things up that I'm searching, and I'll update you. So here's what I think. See, a White House aide, it's not true that the United States is attacking Iran. Well, you know what? If I'm Iran, I'm like, yeah, that's what you said when you were negotiating with me. Well, I'll put it to you like this. Based on what I've seen the last few days, if the White House says we're not attacking Iran, I would interpret that to mean they're attacking Iran, right? CNN, citing an informed source and a U.S. official, Trump has directed his aides to try to arrange a meeting with Iranian officials as soon as possible, right? And here's the thing. Here's the reality. After the debacle, and I mean the debacle of what's the word I'm looking for? After the complete and total destruction of any semblance of trust, whether it's the United States being trusted by another country in negotiation, whether it's the American people trusting the media, trusting something that came out of the White House, trusting a leak, trusting any of that. That's all, anybody who sees the US or CNN or any of them say anything, you have to say, believe the opposite. At this point, you'd be a fool. After, yes, Trump's having a fight with Netanyahu, really? And we find out that was all lies, that they deliberately just to mislead. Yes, Trump's not having a fight. Now he's having a fight. Trump's doing this. Now he's doing that. All of that, we find out that, think about this, and this is important. If you're Russia or China, you're like, holy crap, they negotiated with somebody so they could screw them. Everything they did was a negotiation so they could screw them. So you're Russia, China, or whatever other country, right? If you're the American people, You're like, holy crap. They said this through CNN, MSNBC, Fox. Then they said that. Then they released that. Then they told us Trump was fighting here. And we found out, as the Israelis said, that the media was in on it. That part of this was the media. It was a whole operation using politics, using media, and using all of that. What does that tell you as a person who's in the United States? That means never trust the media. That means the media was willing to work with the government of another country and your government to deliberately deceive you regarding the issue of war and peace. Like we didn't already know that, but now they just did it, and then bragged about it. Oh, wasn't that great? We lied to everybody. We lied to the world. We lied to everybody. We lied to you and lied. Wasn't that great? We're good liars, aren't we? At that point, I got to give you this. You're a pretty good liar. You were a pretty good liar, but nobody will ever trust you again. So we got the latest. Let's see what the latest. Apparently, Kiev's getting beat up pretty good. Yikes. There's a lot of bombs blowing up in Kiev. Ooh. And we're seeing this. The Iranians are the Revolutionary Guard, and I expected this. Okay. The Revolutionary Guard has targeted Israel fighter fuel production sites and energy supplies with missiles and drones. What I expect is this. Now here's something else that happened also today. The Israelis said you should evacuate this area of Tehran where like 1 million people live, right? And then afterwards, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard warns and orders the evacuation of cities. In the coming hours, the Air and Space Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard will carry out a precise strike against the occupied territories. Any city, facility, or center within the occupied territories will be considered a legitimate military target. You must evacuate the cities immediately. So what Iran did was, when Israel said you must evacuate part of Iran, Iran said you got to evacuate your cities. You know, as they say, even Steven, right? Or even swap ain't no swindle. So apparently, they've just pretty much said the same thing to Israel. Look, you flatten our cities, we flatten yours. You come into our cities like you think you're going to flatten our cities, we'll come back and hit yours the same. So whatever however this game is played. And what interesting thing is this: a couple of things. Israel has nuclear capability, absolutely. But we do also know that, and let me remind you of this in case you didn't know, or tell you in case you didn't know. A while back, Alistair Crook said, I don't think Israel will use nuclear weapons against Iran because Iran has in the mountains thousands, not thousands, but they got at least dozens and dozens of bases that are dug deep into these mountains that you have nowhere. They're all over the place. And that if Israel was to launch a nuclear strike against Iran, these bases operate independently, and if they're told, if in fact something like that happens, you're to destroy Israel. You're to take out every single thing. You are to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Now, right off the bat, if you hit Israel's nuclear plant and you blow that up and cause it a meltdown, I mean, that's Chernobyl, basically. And Israel ain't that big. You turn the Chernobyl area into Israel, you don't have Israel anymore. Let's be honest about that, right? But the bottom line is, the Iranians are threatening, and the Iranians have the conventional, they have the conventional capability to end Israel. And they're saying now, we'll end Israel. I think one of the things that's going on is they're making maximum threats as Israel makes maximum threats, just to let Israel know, dudes, we can hit you really, really hard. So right now, just so you'll know, Trump is going, the usual Trump. Trump is threatening. Trump is saying, Israel can't have. Here's the interesting thing. He apparently Tucker Carlson has, and Steve Bannon went on and did something, and they griped about this stuff. And, Tucker Carlson said, basically, what are we doing this for Israel for? This ain't our fight. This is ridiculous. We shouldn't do this. This is a bad move. And apparently Trump tweeted something like, well, Tucker Carlson, let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can. I actually have a Truth Social account. So let me see if I can find what you have. Okay. So here's the latest 2 hours ago. Trump. Iran should have signed the deal, and I told them to sign. I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran, right? That's Trump, right? The maximum. Oh, everybody, we're just going to bomb Tehran. You know, might not be a wise move for you to bomb Tehran. Okay, next. America first means many great things, including the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Make America great again. That's Trump. Somebody please explain to Cookie Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Well, first of all, we already know this is not about, I mean, the whole lie about a nuclear weapon is a pretense. Iran said, we're not trying to get a nuclear weapon, and we're willing to allow the IAEA to come in and, look all they want to, and we ain't trying to get one, so that ain't a problem. This is easy. And the US, well, you can't even, remember what happened. The US came in and said, you can't even have nuclear research for 3.6% for what it would take for medical or what it would take for fuel for your own electricity plants. And Iran said, you can't do that. You don't have a right to do that. That's legal under international law. The answer is no, you don't have a right to do that. Now, what Trump is doing now, he's now conflating this. What he's now saying is, because Iran wants to be able to enrich uranium so that they can use it for medical purposes, for research, and for their own electrical plants, I'm going to pretend that they're saying we want a nuclear weapon, when in fact they don't. So he's going to pretend, it's conflating. I'm going to pretend that if they want, if they demand what they're entitled to do under international law and international treaties, if Iran says, I have a right to do this, and that's not a nuclear weapon, and I'm going to do what I have a right under nuclear under that. And Trump says they can't have a nuclear weapon. That has nothing to do with it. It's a lie, right? So let me see. That's about it. I see right there. Anything else? Apparently, something else that's interesting. And I've read a number of things about this. Apparently, Iran has fully hacked the Israel missile launch notification system, which is now giving out false information. Yesterday, there were reports of launches today, but then there were no arrivals and no air defense work. The missile attack happened a few hours after the hack. Whether this pattern will continue today, we'll see soon enough. So apparently, and I've read this in enough places to say there must be something to it. So apparently there's a missile alert system that goes out over people's phones in Israel that says, okay, missiles, okay. So apparently Iran hacked it, and they started sending people, missile alerts, incoming missiles. The people would all run into the bomb shelters, and no missiles would come. And the Israeli government say, "Hey, we didn't do that." So apparently, the Iranians have hacked them. I saw another thing where the Iranians had hacked some Israeli television, and they were like playing the TV was on, and they were like playing songs or some weird songs over it. So apparently, they're able to do some hacking. They're able to cause some problems for the Israelis. Certainly, the Israelis are not going to tell you what's going on. Let's see. New. The Haifa refinery reports that following Iranian missile attacks, the power plant supplying steam and electricity has been significantly damaged, along with other facilities. All refinery operations and related companies have been shut down. So apparently, these refineries have been hit. What it appears to me, to be quite frank, is, and I think, it makes sense to me. It appears to me that over the, and if you think about it, if you think about this, what's it been, 3 days? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Israel opened up a can of butt whooping. Apparently, they're really looking like rubble. I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures, but it looks to me like, if I get some of them, let me see. No, that's Lebanon. I'm looking for some of the pictures from Israel. Apparently, here's one. You might have seen this one, but I'll show you some of the pictures from Israel. Apparently, this is there were a number of skyscrapers here. Apparently, a missile visited them, and you see that's just rubble. That's just absolute rubble. So the Israelis apparently things have not gone well for them. Here we go. They're clearing out. Here's some more rubble. You can see the rubble here. You can see that the apparently the missiles have visited them, and in the same way that they're oftentimes clearing out. We see what's going on in Gaza. Well, they're apparently doing the best they can to clean out rubble. Also in Israel, apparently that's the situation ain't so good for them there. Let's see. Here's let me see. Show you another video. Yeah, that's so apparently some missiles hit there. You can see it looks like an entire community, entire city block, a couple block, number of blocks. They've been blasted to hell. All of those buildings are gone. That's nothing but rubble. That's very, very dangerous. They're going to have to blow all that stuff up and take it down. And I mean, who wants to be even under there planting explosives to bring it up and take it down? That's a bad situation there. So apparently the Israelis are now starting to experience some of the things that they visited upon this apparently, I don't know if that's Tel Aviv or not. Somebody says that's Tel Aviv, but I don't know if it is or not. Here we go. Here's another one. We're looking at some pictures that we can find online. There's another picture in Tel Aviv. You can see a community there all blown to hell. It looks like some a bad situation for a Hyundai. And of course, you can see trees mangled, buildings mushed, mangled, and bashed, and people with orange hats on for whatever reason. I don't know, but they got orange hats on. That's all I'm saying. We may be able to see. Let's look for Haifa. One of the things that we also let's see. Let's see. This. Here we go. Let's look for. This is what's been going down in Haifa. You can see missiles dropping out of the air. That street there, that was apparently a hypersonic missile. I'm suspecting there's boom. That's what a hypersonic strike looks like. In case you haven't seen one, it just looks like a laser. I mean, when those things hit in at 12,000 miles an hour, whatever the case may be, the kinetic energy alone is going to, just do unthinkable damage. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what else we can find. This apparently Haifa, I believe. All right, let's look at another. Let's take a look at that. You can see that's a hell of a blast. Whoa, two of them. Those are some. That's a whole. And look at you can see the fires afterwards. So whoa, big fires. That may be that refinery they hit, because that is a gigantic fire burning up. Holy crap! Yeah, that's considerable fire afterwards. So that could be. I know they hit a refinery in Haifa. So that says B'nai Brak all hit, including Haifa's oil refinery. Yeah, they're hitting military bases and stuff like that. So you can see I mean, I would imagine. Let's take a look here. Let's look at some more stuff here. Right. Now, this is when the Israelis, it says, video shows Israelis cheering the missiles that landed on the Arab neighborhood in the city of Hama north of Haifa. So there's all kind of stuff going on. Let's see what we got here. Oh no, we already watched that one. Apparently. Now the other thing is this is of consequence, because this is something else we've seen. This is
شاطئ مدينة سوريا تحول إلى وجهة لتصوير الصواريخ الإيرانية التي تسقط على المستوطنات الإسرائيلية، ونحن على بعد كيلومترات من مستوطنات الجليل.
So the bottom line is this, what we're seeing, and we see a lot of that too, and that is a lot of people around the areas that are cheering when they see, a lot of people there who are very angry at the Israelis, and they're cheering when they see various strikes hit Israel. So let's continue. It appears to me that, I don't know just yet, but it appears to me that the Iranians, to be quite frank, can kind of hit Israel at will. It seems to me that they can hit any site in Israel they want to. It also seems to me that, while the Israelis are going to hit TV stations and stuff like that, right? And they're going to say, because apparently they hit an Iranian TV station today. So they're going to hit TV stations and stuff like that. But here's the reality of that, right? And because I've heard, like a friend of mine was saying, well, why don't the Israelis hit an Iranian TV station? Why don't the Iranians hit back? Why don't they hit a TV station? And my position was this. I said, number one, it's against international law, and it's a military conflict, and you need to stay within the confines of international law. I said, but let's also add this. Every missile that you shoot at a TV station is a missile that you didn't shoot at a base. And I would argue the British World War II plan. One of the things that was happening early during World War II is that the Germans were bombing the crap out of the RAF, and they were tearing up everything. They're hitting their bases, they were hitting their factories and everything. And the Brits were like, "What the heck are we going to do? Well, it'll all be gone." And they came up with a devious plot that actually worked. That's when they first started bombing German cities, civilians. And it was bait. It was, we'll bomb German cities, and then hopefully they'll come back and bomb our cities. As sad as it is, they said, if they bomb our cities, we're going to lose civilians. But if we lose the RAF, we have no way to defend ourselves. At least that's the way the story goes, as I understand it. And so they baited the Germans into attacking London, as opposed to attacking the RAF sites, and it allowed them to rebuild their air force and to preserve what they had, and it allowed them to fight on, as opposed to that. So one of the things that happens in war, sadly and unfortunately, is that if the enemy spends their munitions firing at civilians, every one that they fire at civilians is one they're not using to deteriorate your military capacity. So I suspect, particularly being that the Iranians have been probably prepping for this for many, many years, that the Iranians know, well, we got X amount of missiles, and we got X amount of targets in Israel, and we got a bank of targets that we need to hit. And if the Americans are coming in, then we need to disable the following bases, the following airfields, the following munitions factories, the following XXX, and this power station, this and that. And if we waste missiles on friggin' TV stations, that's missiles we could have used for strategic and tactical targets. So I suspect that while, as you know, with the Israelis or the U.S. empire, they usually don't do real well when they're engaging with other military, so they prefer to just get terrorist activities, kill as many civilians as they can. I think that the Iranians, because people are like, well, you're going to hit back their civilians. I think the Iranians are like, no, we're trying to win a war here. We're trying to engage in military in a conflict, and it is more valuable. Think about that. You've probably heard this term, high value targets. A high value target. So if the Iranians say, we got this missile here, and we could throw it in the middle of a friggin' news station, and the news station goes about down, and like kill a few people at the news station. Oh, hooray, great. We've killed a few news stations. We've cut them off. They're probably going to come back on in a couple hours. Okay. Or we can take that same missile and slap it into that power station and shut the damn power station down for months, right? Hit the power station. I mean, I'm just saying, I want peace. I don't want anybody hit, but I'm just saying, from a strategic perspective, you're going to hit the power station if you got a brain. But if you're not, you're going to say, we'll fix them. Ha ha, we're angry. I believe that part of what Israel does is that they're not reasonable. They're not rational. And a lot of this is anger and revenge. And they're just throwing punches in all directions in anger and revenge. And that don't work well in a fight. In a fight, you don't want to be angry and you don't want revenge. You want to be cold and calculated. You want to be thinking clearly and assertively, and you want to be aggressive, but you want to be able to know what the hell's going on if you're in a fight. You don't just go, you're going to get yourself killed, beat to death, and you're not going to win the fight. Bottom line, the odds of you winning the fight, the more emotional you get, the greater the odds of you losing or getting the hell beat out of you goes up. Okay, so I think what Iran's doing is they're not going to buy into it, and they're going to, in the same way when Israeli said, hey, you better, you better evacuate part of Tehran. The Iranians just said, well, then you better evacuate your cities. So, I mean, it's like tit for tat. You said that, we're going to say this. What are you going to do? We can't control if you're going to do something crazy and try to kill a bunch of people. But understand something, there's going to be hella pay if you do that. And the Iranians have the capacity. Even, because that's the thing about it. They have the conventional capacity. Look, if Israel is destroyed, if Israel is wiped out, what difference does it make whether it was wiped out from a nuclear attack or from a conventional attack? It's wiped out. They have the capacity to obliterate Israel. So if Israel is going to do something crazy, they have to know that, there's going to be mutual assured destruction. That's for sure. So I think the Iranians, and the bottom line is this, if you're Iran, you're in a war and you got to fight that war. You got to make a decision early. If you are dealing with somebody who has a nuclear weapon, you got to make a decision early what you're going to do. And if you're going to fight him, if you're pushed in a position where you got to fight him, you got to fight him. And you got to say, if you're going to pull the trigger on that, I can't help that. I can't stop you from doing it. But if you pull the trigger on that, understand what's going to happen. And of course, what's a couple of things that are interesting, and I'm not sure how much I know about this, and you probably have heard about that too. Pakistan seems to be very angry. Pakistan seems to be saying to the U.S. and Israel, don't do it. Don't, go too far. We stand with Iran. Well, they got a border with Iran, number one. Certainly any problems in Iran, I mean, refugees, anything like that would certainly flood into Pakistan and disrupt Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't need headaches like that. If there were a nuclear weapon, the fallout would fall over 300 million Pakistanis or 200 million, however many it is, and that'd be it for them. They'd be effectively nuked too. So they're like, no, you're putting us in danger. So the Pakistanis, Pakistanians, I don't know what the hell, the people in Pakistan, their government, which is not interesting. It's just, it's a military dictatorship for that matter. But they're pushing back hard, saying this is not a good move. I have heard rumors. I don't know it for sure yet, but there are rumors that the Taliban in Afghanistan is saying, be careful, because if the U.S. gets involved, we'll declare war on Israel and the U.S. See, Trump is talking a good game, but there's a bad potential here. There's a bad potential here for the U.S. to, bite off something. Israel's already bitten off something they can't chew. But as I said, to me, my belief is now, based on the treachery that I'm seeing, I believe that this was always the game. That the game was, Israel will hit first, and that will give the U.S. the pretext to come in. That the U.S. can't just get away with saying to our citizens, "Hey guys, what? We decided to attack Iran, and there's going to be hell to pay. Your economy's screwed. Gas is going to be through the roof. Everything's going to be through the roof. They'll be massively off. You're screwed. But we're attacking Iran. Leave me alone." That they couldn't do that. That the plan was, we'll get Israel to do it, and then we'll say we got no choice. We've got to protect Israel. But here's the thing: if they go into the war, there's already a war inside of Maga. There's already a lot of people in Maga saying, "I didn't vote for this. I didn't want this." So if they do this, in a way, let's see. I mean, Trump will have numbers below anything you've ever seen before. Trump will be in deep and serious political trouble if he does this. And it certainly at this point appears that he's going to. Let me take a look while we're at it and see if I got anything else new. Channels. Let me see. We got anything? Kiev's been hitting pretty hard. So apparently, Trump was at the G7 meeting, and he said, "I've got to leave as soon as I can." So apparently, there's something was going on. That's what made me believe he's going to attack. Also, this is what we're seeing. A fresh group of U.S. Air Force KC-135R tankers has taken off from bases across the country. Flight paths show at least 6 tankers in this group alone converging near the Atlantic. These refueling aircraft don't deploy like this unless they're prepping for sustained overseas operations, fighter escorts, bombers, surveillance flights, or long-haul airlift missions. Add this to the 25-plus tankers already airborne, and we're looking at one of the largest stateside tanker mobilizations in recent years. This isn't routine at all. So a lot of people believe that they're preparing to attack. Let's see what else we got. Anything else? Trump says something will happen if Iran doesn't sign a nuclear deal. Israel's doing very well. I gave Iran 60 days, so something will happen. Hours ago, Trump said Iran wants to make a deal. They should have signed the deal. He's going to do something soon. So it feels like there's a level of desperation. So do you see? Let's see. So here's the stupid thing about it. So Trump keeps talking about Iran should have signed a deal. They should have signed a deal. Here's the bottom line. They never offered a deal. They never got to a deal. Iran said, we want to negotiate. And the U.S. said, okay. And the U.S. said, okay, you got to give up everything. And Iran said, nah, we're not going to do that, but we're willing to do this. And the U.S. said, no, you should have signed the deal. In other words, you have to take what we offer you or we'll attack you. It's gangster. That's, the thing about it is Trump uses the word deal, which is, in an imbecilic way. Deal, everything's a deal. You know what that's like saying? If you walk out, you walk into your car and some guy runs up behind you and sticks a gun in your back, and you say, "Oh my gosh!" and he takes your wallet and he walks away. And somebody says, "What happened?" "I made a deal with that guy with the gun." "Really? What was the deal?" "Well, he put a gun in my back and I gave him my wallet and he walked away and we had a deal. He had a piece of paper, signed a deal. I signed the deal." That ain't a deal. That's armed robbery. Right? And so what Trump tries to do all the time is claim that armed robbery is a deal. And might I add, they never intended on a deal. This is not, if it was a deal, then why did Israel attempt to do a decapitation strike? And why was this whole thing about, oh yeah, we're going to do this. The regime's going to collapse. And then Bibi's talking about, yes, the Iranian people, we're going to free you from this evil regime. This is nothing to do with weapons or a deal. This is just another liar's promise that gets you a regime change move. And it ain't going to work no better than any of the other ones. Anything else? I ain't seeing a whole lot. Let's see, anything from Pepe Escobar. Yeah. So apparently that's where we are. I do believe, Alistair Crook talked about the UN today and how, the Israel's been roundly condemned. I think that let me see. I just keep checking around the various sites that I look at to see if I see anything. We've got U.S. President Donald Trump issued a cryptic warning on Truth Social, urging everyone to leave the Iranian capital as soon as possible. Iran should have signed the deal, blah, blah, blah. Insisted that U.S. had nothing to do with the attack on Iran, but warned Tehran of retaliation at levels never seen before. He declined to clarify what might trigger U.S. military involvement, telling reporters on Monday, I don't want to talk about that. Protecting U.S. forces are a top priority, and these deployments are intended to enhance our defensive posture in the region. Well, if you wanted to protect U.S. forces, they'd be in the U.S. You're going to protect. So I think what we're looking at here is apparently the leader of Iran said Iran did not begin this war and has no interest in perpetuating bloodshed, but we will proudly fight to the last drop of blood to protect our land. That's that's the Iranian foreign minister. He warned that getting the U.S. mired in the mother of forever wars would destroy any chance of a diplomatic situation. So here's the deal, too. Iran went in there, and this is the problem they also have with faking this business about nuclear weapons, and that is this. And this is the real jam that they've put themselves in. They've kind of guaranteed themselves a loss, because if you say, look, you've got to sign this deal about nuclear weapons, which means no enrichment. Okay. And Iran says, we're not going to do it. So then you attack them. You attack Iran and say, okay, we've attacked you. Now, and then you say the whole time that we were negotiating with you was all a lie. We were negotiating with you so that we could kill you, so that we could attack you, so that we could beat you up. So when we said we were negotiating about nuclear weapons, we weren't really negotiating about nuclear weapons. We were just setting you up so we could take you out, right? Now you say, now let's go back and negotiate. What's Iran going to say? Yeah, right. I don't think I'm going to go through that again. Well, you've got to get rid of the enrichment. And Iran's going to say, I think we've been down that road before, haven't we? Haven't we had this discussion? And the last time we had this discussion, do you recall what the answer was? No. And the answer is still no. So we might as well just keep fighting until you get tired of fighting, because we ain't going to get tired of fighting. And what is the U.S. going to do? Can the U.S. do some damage? Yes, but I'll say this. At this point, we see Israel getting rubbleized. We get, Israel, and this is important. This is important. And, maybe I've said it too many times today. Maybe I have, but I got to say it again, and it's critical. I've said it in every show, and I've covered it in every single stinking show. And this is critical. Well, I guess it ain't that critical. Well, there we go. Israel tells airlines not to let Israeli citizens leave, even once repatriation starts. The Israeli government has instructed the domestic airlines not to allow Israeli citizens to leave the country on planes designated for the repatriation of Israelis stranded abroad. Right? So they said it's about overcrowding. It's about overcrowding. Sure. I want to leave. Nah, the planes are too crowded. Nah, you can't leave on those planes. In other words, it's a concentration camp for Jews. It's in a concentration. In order to be Israeli, you have to be Jewish, right? So it's the concentration camp. They're getting blown up. I want to leave. Sorry, you can't leave. Hang around here, but I think I'll get blown up. Yeah, you probably will. But Look at the bright side. You're in the promised land. At least you'll go out in the promised land. Hey, think about it. You made it to the promised land and then you got blown to smithereens. But I want to leave. I'm from Brooklyn. No, you ain't going back to Brooklyn. So if you're an Israeli elsewhere and you called your brother, hey, Dave, when you coming home? I'm not. Why? They told me I can't leave. But I left last week and you told me you're going to leave this week. Yeah, good. You lucky bastard. You got out last week. This week ain't nobody getting out. Nah, but there's bombs landing everywhere, correct? And you'll probably get blown up. Yeah, that's also correct. And you can't leave. No. But I thought that's what we were doing to the people in Gaza. Yeah, we were. It's karma's a you know what. You know what I mean? Turnabout is fair play. So now, unfortunately for the Israelis, their government has said the same thing to them that their government has said to the people of Gaza. You can't leave. Just hold your hand out and catch yourself a bomb because it's coming down and dropping on you. That's where Israel is. And I think, I'll say this. I think we're looking at the end of Israel. I really believe one way or the other, we're looking at the end of Israel. How does Israel, a country who says we're the Jewish homeland and you're Jewish and it's not safe around the world, you got to come here where it's safe. There's anti-Semitism and all that stuff there. You don't want to be there. You want to be here where it's safe, where we have our homeland. God gave us this, blah, 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 blah. Unless they start bombing the hell out of us, then you can't leave. Come on in. Okay, I want to leave now. Nah, that's not how this game works. You can come here where you'll be safe. It ain't safe. Oh, my phone, whatchamacallit, let me plug in there we go. My computer's plugged in. I thought they were to crap out on me. For God's sake, that wouldn't have worked out well. At any rate, yeah, so you get the point. I don't know. They're saying they're worried about overcrowding and the risk of mass casualties amongst passengers waiting to depart. So the passengers won't be allowed to depart. It's kind of convenient, that they don't want people. I've always felt like this with Israel too. Why in the hell do they if you think about this, they put all of these major defense and intelligence headquarters in the middle of the city? Because, and I'll say this, whatever they say, whatever the neocons say that you're doing, they're doing. What do they say? Well, Hamas, they hide stuff right in front of the people. They use the people for human shields. All right. Well, where's the headquarters of the IDF? Nah, in the middle of the city. Where's the headquarters for the your intelligence? Damn, right in the middle of the city. So you put all of your headquarters and all of that stuff in the middle of the city so that it's going to get attacked. And then you're going to say they attack neighborhoods. And what do you say about Hamas? Oh, they put all of their stuff in the neighborhood. So that I'll put it to you like this. If you've been paying attention the last couple of years, what have the neocons been saying about Putin? Oh my God, remember this? He's got Alzheimer's, he's got dementia, he's got 12 different kind of cancers. He's got stomach cancer, brain cancer. I mean, if you listen to them, Putin died 1 million years ago. I could do a search right now for Putin cancer. He's got every kind of cancer, and he's got Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, right? And that's all we heard, right? What was going on with Joe Biden while they were telling us that Putin, not Biden, it wasn't Biden. It was Putin that had cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, everything, but the scurvy, right? It was actually Biden that had all that crap. Biden had some level of dementia, and clearly he had cancer for many years. He was getting treated for cancer. And so I'm telling you, they will always tell you who they are, what they're doing, and what their problems are. Just listen to what they accuse other people of. There's a term in psychology, deny, project, attack. It ain't me, it's you, and I'm going to attack you for it. That's the deny, project, attack. It ain't me, it's you, and I'm going to attack you for it. It's not, our president is not the one who has dementia and cancer. It's Vladimir Putin. And he's going to die any minute. And I always thought to myself, what sense does that make? I mean, I understand propaganda and how that works and all that stuff. But what sense does it make to just say, it's Vladimir Putin has cancer and Alzheimer's and what was the other one they said he always had? Parkinson's. I kept saying his hand's not shaped up. The guy looks perfect. He's sharp as a nail. I don't care if you hate him, but why do you have to make up that he has Parkinson's and cancer? And now we know why. Because Joe Biden had Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson, cancer, all of the above. Now we'll probably find out he had 3 or 4 different kind of cancers. That didn't spread. Well, by the way, it spread. Might I say this about prostate cancer? It takes a long time to spread, and he was getting checked every so many months. They knew he had it. You ain't gonna tell me they didn't take a blood test and look at his PSA numbers? I'm an average Joe schmuck, and I do that yearly. So you know they did it to the president. So you know and it's a slow growing cancer. So you know he had it. I don't know how long. They just wouldn't tell us. They just lied. And now Trump, to be quite frank, when you listen to Trump now, he don't seem like he's when you look at the things that he's doing, they make no damn sense at all. I mean, to think that when you look at his tweets, it's like, what the hell? Are you constantly tweeting something? So now I'll put it to you like this. We're tweeting, Truth Social, whatever. If you look at Donald Trump's Truth Social, it's like he's screaming, we're going to war with Iran. That's what he's screaming. Yes, everybody should leave Tehran. What does that mean? What are you saying? You're going to attack Iran? Somebody's going to attack Iran? Whatever. Or you're going to attack Now, wait a minute. And let me add this. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but their nuclear weapons facilities are not in Iran. I mean, they're not in Tehran. They're not in the middle of the city. So they can't have it. We've got to attack their nuclear weapons facility. What are you going to do? The people better get out of the city. But that ain't where their nuclear weapons facility is. Why would you bomb the city if there is no nuclear weapons? I thought you said they can't have, that you're going to go in and you're going to take out their nuclear weapons, right? So what does that have the hell to do with Tehran? In other words, what you're saying is we're threatening to kill civilians, which is all you do anyway, is you threaten to kill civilians. That's all you do. I think that they better be wary, because I think the Iranians ain't happy, and the Iranians do have the capability. Look, Iran's got the capability to hurt them. The Iranians have the capability to hurt them. And if they do something that really infuriates Mohammed Morandi has said it. He says, look, we will wipe out the Western economy. We will wipe it out. We will do it. And you know what? First of all, whatever weapons you have to use the weapons that you have, don't you? If you got a knife, you got to use a knife. If you've got a rock, you got to use a rock. If you got a club, you got to use a club. Whatever weapon you have to use that weapon. And they've got a nuclear weapon, and that nuclear weapon is, look, I don't know if you remember this. Why did the Saudis stop fighting the Houthis? Because the Houthis wiped out like somewhere between 25 and 50% of their oil making capabilities, and they were using slow moving drones. And you remember what they had? They had the Patriot systems protecting their oil infrastructure. Well, they might as well have just had nothing. They might as well have put up a fly swatter. They might as well have stood up and yelled when the drones went by. It would have been, they might as well have did like the Ukrainians and thrown pickle jars at the drones, right? Because the drones were not going to crap. So they had Patriot systems, and the Houthis knocked the crap out of their oil producing stuff, and they had to say uncle, right? Why did we cry uncle with the Houthis? Because we couldn't stop their missiles. So ultimately, if Iran decides to let go, if you do something stupid and really infuriate them, if you say, I'm going to attack Tehran and kill a whole bunch of civilians, they're going to make you pay. They're going to make you pay. For starters, I think very early in the conflict, I have no idea. I tell you what I believe. I believe that the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians and their allies, some of the BRICS allies, have already talked, and they got a plan if the U.S. attacks them. And I would suspect at some point within a week, if the U.S. attacks them, which seems to be imminent, you're going to see another oil embargo like you did in the 1970s. You'll see some kind of an oil embargo. And that oil embargo will just drive the price to hell. And if the latest oil embargo in the 70s, there was so little oil, what they did then was they said, if you have if you've got even number at the end of your tags, you can go on certain days, and if you've got an odd number, you can go on certain days. Can you imagine what happens to our country now if it's even and odd days for gas and the price is really, really high? And then, because we got enough problems. See, back then, when that happened, we had a very significant what do you call it? We had a very significant industrial base. So you saw a lot of people are working in industry. You got people working gig jobs, doing driving around doing Uber and stuff like that. How is the person doing Uber going to be able to make a living, make any money? I've caught Uber. I caught an Uber, Lyft, the same thing, a couple weeks ago, and the guy was basically telling me, "Yeah, I'm a single father. I got kids, so this is what I have to do to make a living." Well, guess what? He ain't making a living if you can only get gas on even and odd days, and you might not get it on that. And when you do get it, the gas is $10 a gallon. First of all, can you imagine what it would cost you to Uber 10 miles? Nobody will be able to afford to Uber or Lyft 10 miles. So you're looking at economic disaster. And I would imagine very early in the conflict that if the U.S. attacks the Iranians, they're going to close the Straits of Hormuz. Now, the only reason I don't suspect now they wouldn't attack the oil infrastructure of their other Muslim countries, simply, I think, initially, mainly because these people are not happy about what's going on either, and they don't want to piss them off. They still want to have some alliances with these countries. They still have some support with these countries, so they don't want to attack them. Right, number one, and that's one reason they don't want to close the Straits of Hormuz. I think what you may see is a closing of the Straits of Hormuz selectively. For instance, just like the Houthis did, and say, you know what, the ones that are going to Russia and China or something like that, the ones that are going to friendly countries, that's a precedent that Russia set, that they will deal differently with friendly countries than non-friendly countries. So in that the same way that they're doing, that the Houthis did, Iran could say friendly countries can go through, unfriendly countries can't. Also, there has definitely been a word that if the Iranians close the Straits of Hormuz, that the Houthis will then close the Bab al-Mandab Strait, which will be the what do you call it, that goes to Europe, the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. That the Houthis will then say, okay, we're closing that. I mean, further than they already have. They'll just close it off. Nope, sorry, nobody can go through. Now they may, I would imagine, allow the Russians and Chinese. There are rumors that the Chinese planes have been landing there, landing in Iran. The Russians have been there, so they'll be, part of the defense of Iran, certainly informally helping Iran with a lot of technical stuff, which is critically important, helping with targeting, I'm sure, which is critically important, particularly if you think about it. Think about this. After what the U.S. and NATO, because this is clearly just not the U.S., it's clearly NATO. After what's NATO done in Ukraine, I would think Russia would want a little bit of get backs. I would think Russia would want to help with some targeting. I would think Russia would want to help them out. And I say this, don't forget this. Do not forget this. Somebody says, I heard China has alien UFO ray zappers. And that is, don't forget I said this. Keep this in mind. You've got a lot of bases in Africa, and they are not as well guarded. They're not going to be as well guarded. And there's a lot of people in Africa that ain't happy with U.S. imperialism. And if you're Russia, after what's happened in Ukraine, they've snuck in, they've attacked your nuclear triad, they've blown up your civilians. If you're Russia, why wouldn't you go around Africa and sprinkle a few missiles around and some drones and say, there's an American base over there. I'm not saying you got to aim this missile or drone at it. I'm just saying, here's a missile or drone. There's an American base. If you need some hand, plug it in the coordinates. There you go. I'm just throwing that out there. Drone, American base. If it happens to fall in American base, you didn't get it from me. I don't know anything about it. I never met you. I'm just saying, drone base. Have a nice day. Now, I'm being facetious about this, but I'm just saying, would it shock you if after all we've done, might I add, we're hanging out in Taiwan and all kind of places around China and putting all this stuff? You think China and Russia's got a lot of friends in Africa? If I'm China and Russia, I'm like, these bases in Africa are a problem, and the Africans there too. I'm like, look, I'm just saying these bases might have to go. If I'm China, the other thing is this, like the last aircraft carrier or something that was in the South China Sea. If I'm China and something kicks off, there's two things I'm going to consider. Number one, if I'm not happy and really not happy, I say to the US, you know that deal we made the other day where I was supposed to be still shipping stuff to you and you were going to drop your whatever's, you're going to drop your tariff, yeah, forget it. As long as you're at war with Iran, not a ship is going to leave the shore of China heading for the United States. By the way, you can forget anything to do ever with any of these rare earth minerals or magnets that you need. You ain't worthy of them. You don't know how to act civilized. I can't tell you things that a civilized society needs. Russia provides a lot of stuff for us. Russia provides uranium. That's where we get most of our uranium from for our nuclear power plants. If I'm Russia, no, you're not getting any. You're attacking my allies. Sorry. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Now, Russia, if the everything goes to hell as far as the oil industry, first of all, Russia's going to be making a fortune because they're the ones that'll be selling all the oil. But if I'm Russia, you try to put a cap? Europe, you don't want any of my cheap gas or oil, so forget you. Have a nice day. U.S., you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. You're attacking me. You're blowing my stuff up. You're killing my civilians. You think I'm selling you oil or diesel fuel or anything else? Sorry, everything I got's going to Asia, maybe Africa, but you ain't getting the West gets Asia, Africa, South America. Fine, I'll sell them all that stuff. But as long as you guys are at war with my buddy, can't do nothing for you, man. I'm too busy trying to do for me, as Flavor Flav said. So anyway, thanks a lot. I just thought I'd talk a little bit. It certainly appears, based on everything we're seeing, that Trump is up to no good, that he is the MAGA people, they've been took, they've been hoodwinked, they have been bamboozled. Let me look a couple of extra views before we go to see if anything pops up. Not seeing anything there. Let me look here. Breaking. Oh, here we go. Breaking. Israeli sirens sound in Haifa as air defenses scramble to intercept incoming projectiles. It is unclear how large the incoming missile attack is. What else do we got? Anything else? Here's another one. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is leaving the G7 summit with President Donald Trump ahead of scheduled return to Washington. CNN reports citing a State Department spokesperson. Oh, anything else? I'm not seeing a lot of else here. Let's see. A B-1B Lancer bomber now airborne, visible on civilian radar, flying southwest over North Dakota. Its appearance on public radar is highly unusual and likely deliberate. This could possibly be a show of force as opposed to the tankers and cargo lifts we saw earlier. Let's see, anything else we got? I think, yep, I think that's it. Iran's ally and strategic partner China has just ordered its citizens to leave Israel by land towards Jordan as soon as possible. China knows total war is about to kick off. That's what I'm reading. Who knows? So we don't know what's going to go down now. What's Iran's going to do? We don't know what Israel's going to do. We don't know. I can say this: we could be on the verge of economic collapse if things go bad. That was always the possibility. There was always a possibility that if things went south here, economic collapse. So at any rate, that's that. We'll see what happens. And I'm going to get going here. And thanks everybody. By the way, share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on Rockpin, follow me on Rumble, follow me on Telegram if you can afford it, Cash App, follow me on Substack, or buy me a coffee or anything like that. Patreon. Also, there's my P.O. Box, P.O. Box 32, Glen Burnie, Maryland. If you can afford to send a donation there. Doesn't have to be a donation. People just send me letters to read. I read their letters. People send me magazines, books, all kinds of stuff. P.O. Box 32. You see my P.O. Box there. Feel free to send me something. Snail mail. I'm tired. I'm out.